Alright guys, I'm going to go over Firestarter 41. So, this is going to use this idea of a tangent. So remember, a line is a tangent of a circle, so I'm just reading here. A line is a tangent to a circle if and only if it is perpendicular to a radius drawn to the point of tangency. Basically what that means is, it barely touches the circle, alright? So if you draw a radius, it's going to be perpendicular to the radius. Right? So it touches the circle at one point, there's always a perpendicular radius attached to it. Right? Because remember, the radius can go from anywhere. So if the tangent line was here, I could draw the radius right there. Alright? The other one that's going to be important, if two segments from the same exterior point are tangent to a circle, then they are congruent. So they're saying AB right here is congruent to BC. Right? So they're saying AB right here is congruent to BC. Alright? It's another, big concept. And if a polygon is circumscribed around a circle, then all sides are tangent to the circle. So basically saying this circle barely fits inside the triangle in this picture. Any figure, it could be a quadrilateral or a pentagon, hexagon, etc. So this is, right there is the point of tangency. So right there is the point of the tangent point, right there and right there, right? So each of those are perpendicular to that specific radius. All right. So we're going to use a lot of Pythagorean's theorem for this. So if you guys remember, that's like a big thing that we talked about previously, because this idea of perpendicular lets us use this idea of a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if I got to find the value of x, I know that's 9 right here. So I know that this length right here is 17. That's C. So although it didn't, remember this is the right triangle, the right angle. So the C is always across from the right angle. So C is actually going to be 17. So I'm going to have 17 squared here. I'm going to have 9 squared. And I don't know what b squared is. Alright? So I have 9 squared plus b squared equals 17 squared. I have 81 plus b squared equals 17 squared is 289. Now b squared, really I probably should have wrote x squared there. That would have been a little bit easier for you, because that is our x right there. So then I'm going to subtract 81 from both sides. So I get x squared equals 208. And now remember, to get rid of the little 2, we square root both sides. Now remember, so I'm going to put in my calculator. I'm just going to put the square root of 208 in my calculator. So x equals, I'm going to put the square root of 208, so second square root 208. It's about 14.42. Now remember, it's about because square root is an irrational number that goes on forever. Alright. So, 17, very, very similar. So we're going to do 17. Now remember, this is a radius. So that is the same. So that's 8. That means that's going to be 16 for the diameter. Alright. 13 is the tangent line. We don't know across. So we're going to say we're going to call that one A. We'll call the red line B. And we don't know C. Alright? We don't know that, so we're going to call it X. So I'm going to put 13 squared, because remember we're using a squared plus b squared equals c squared, plus 16 squared equals x squared. Alright? So in my calculator, I'm going to do 13 squared plus 16 squared. Okay, so 13 squared is 169. 16 squared is 256. And that's equal to x squared. Remember, we're going to add those two numbers together. It's going to turn into 425 is equal to x squared. Alright? Now I'm going to square root both sides. Remember, that's how we get rid of the little 2, because I have to get rid of that exponent. So x is going to be about, and I put that in my calculator, and I end up with 20.62. So it's about 20.62. So that's it. Perfect. All right, so 18 through 22 are very, very similar. I don't want you to think about x right now in number 18, so just think about, we'll just call this c, all right? So I know that I have an a, we'll call that a, and then I have a b, sorry, I have a b, and I know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And I'll find x after I find the whole length of c, because you'll kind of make some sense in a second. So 7 squared is 49, and 24 squared, if you didn't know, is 576. So I have 49 plus 576 equals c squared. So now I'm going to add 49 to 576. I end up with 625. So now I got to take the square root of 625, because remember, we got to get rid of this little 2 here, so I square root both sides. And I just like to move c over to the left. It doesn't really matter though if you do or don't. So I'd say square root of 625 is 25. So I know that c is 25. So I'm going to do a little bit of looking at this now. I'm going to kind of erase a little bit. So c, the whole length is 25, but what I also know, and that's really important to figure out here, is that I know that this guy right here is the same as this guy right here, which is 7. So I know that this whole thing is 25, which means x is equal to 25 minus 7. So x is equal to 18. That's it. 19, very, very similar idea. Remember, this is x right here. So this is also x. So together, this whole thing is going to be 2x. All right? So that's going to be my b. I'm going to call this guy a. That's my b. And this part right here is going to be c. And if you're ever not sure about which one's c, you always find the 90, that's the tangent line, and across from it's 90 degrees. So I have 8 squared plus, this one's going to get a little bit harder, 2x in parentheses squared. That's the hardest part about this problem, is that right there. A lot of people are going to forget to make it in parentheses squared, or you're going to just make a mistake with the algebra, not the geometry here. And then 5 plus 12 is 17 squared. So c is 17. So I know that 8 squared is 64. Now you have to remember that you take the 2 to the little 2, the exponent is going to go to the 2 and the x. So it's actually 4x squared equals 289. Alright. Now I have to get 64 on the left side, so I'm going to minus 64 from both sides. So now I have 4x squared equals 225. So now in my calculator, I'm just going to I'm going to divide both sides by 4. So I'm going to, remember, when you solve and PEMDAS in reverse, when you use PEMDAS backwards, right? If you don't remember, this is our review of solving. We get rid of multiplication before we get rid of an exponent. So before I get rid of the little 2, I have to divide both sides by 4. I'm going to do that even though it makes it not messy. That's fine. So I'm going to have 225 divided by 4. I end up with 56.25. So I have x squared equals 56.25. And now I'm going to square root both sides. And that's fine because I'm using a calculator anyhow. So I say second square root, 56.25. It's going to give me 7.5. So it actually turned out to be kind of nice anyhow. So I get x equals 7.5. Right? It's not the only way to do it. There's another way to do that. If you just imagine the whole, don't think the whole b side is 2x, just think of it like y, and then you would have to divide that by 2 at the end. So either way is okay. 20 is probably the hardest problem on here, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So what we're going to do here is I have to say if this is x right here, then this guy is also x. So my c is actually going to be x plus 4. Alright. My a was going to be x. So b right here is going to be 10. So I have an a, a b, and a c. Remember, we are doing a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We've been doing that. We are going to continue to do that whenever there's a right triangle. We know it's a right triangle because, remember, that is a tangent line. Alright, that's why we know c is x plus 4 or 4 plus x. It doesn't really matter the order you write that. So I'm going to write a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's going to be the hardest part about this problem because you have x plus 4 squared in parentheses. So the only way that this can be done is by FOIL. You cannot take the little 2. You cannot take this little 2 right here and distribute it. That's not allowed because of the plus sign. So you have to do something called FOIL, which we've talked about a couple different times. So FOIL is a way to take x plus 4 and you have to rewrite it as 2 sets of parentheses. Alright, then you're going to take the first, x is going to go to x, that's why it's called FOIL, because you do the first 2. So x times x is x squared. Now, I'm going to do the outside, so x goes to 4, I multiply those two together, I get 4x. So it's adding. Then I'm going to do the inside. 4 goes to x, that's going to give me another 4x. Then I do the last 2. Four times 4 is 16. I add them all together. Like terms go with like terms, so it's going to become x squared plus 8x plus 16. So that's what this side comes into. It turns into x squared plus 8x plus 16. Alright. X squared just stays x squared. 10 squared becomes 100. Now I'm going to put all my x's on the same side. So I'm going to move this guy over to the right side. So I'm going to subtract x squared. That's our property equality. Remember, I can do whatever I want to one side as long as I do it to the other. So I subtract the x squared over here, and so that means I minus x squared from the right side. They actually cancel out. So it's going to make this problem a little bit easier. So now we have 8x plus 16 equals 100. Now it's just a simple linear equation. You're going to minus 16 from both sides. I get 8x equals 84. Now I divide both sides by 8. So I end up with my final answer, x equals 10.5. So that's not bad. A little bit of work. The hardest part, like I said, was this idea of FOIL. So that was the hardest part of this problem, is this part right here. All right, but nothing else is really different. 21. So remember, we talked about if both lines are tangent. So this guy is tangent to this guy, then we get to say this is congruent to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 8x minus 39 equals 3x plus 16. That's it. All right. Now I'm going to move my x's over, so I'm going to minus 3x from both sides, because that's the first thing I like to do. Whenever I do PEMDAS backwards to solve, right, I like to have one variable, so I have to put all my x's on the same side. So I end up with 5x minus 39 equals 16. Now I'm going to get rid of the subtraction, so I add 39 to both sides. So I get 5x equals 55. Now, to get rid of the multiplication, I divide. So I end up with x equals 11. Now, just to check my work, I'm going to plug in. 8 times 11 is 88. 88 minus 39 is is 49. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to 3 times 11 is 33. 33 plus 16 is 49. So they both equal 49, which means we did it right. All right. Now, 22. 22, they want to find the perimeter. That means I need to have this whole thing. I need to have this whole thing. I need to have this whole thing. All right. And you have all three of those. I'm going to add them together. Good news is, I know that 4x plus 15 right here is congruent to 15x minus 7. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to find x. So I'm going to say 4x plus 15 equals 15x minus 7. Because it's inscribed, these are all tangent. And if L is tangent to both sides of the circle, or has two tangent points, they are congruent. So I'm going to put all my x's on one side. So I'm going to move the 4x over to the right just so I have my x's positive. But it doesn't matter if you didn't do it that way. Now I'm going to rewrite it. 11x minus 7 equals 15. Now to get rid of that minus 7, I have to add 7 to both sides. Alright. So then I get 11x equals 22. So x equals 2. Alright. So that's the first part. I need to find that. So I put 2 in right here. So 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 15 is 23. So this spot right here is 23. This spot right here is also 23 because 15 times 2 is 30. 30 minus 7 is 23. This line right here is 7, which makes this little piece 7. Since this is 7 and this whole thing is 26, that means this part right here is 19 because 19 plus 7 is 26, which makes this 19. I have everything filled out now. So JK is going to be this line right here, the all green line. That's going to be 26. K to L is 7 and 23, which makes it 30. And 19 and 23 is going to give me JL, which is going to be 42. I add them all up, so the perimeter is going to be equal to 5698. So my perimeter is going to be equal to 98. And that's it. That finishes this.